coming up.
On that stage of the hero's journey, it's quite important that as a traveler, as a seeker, we find a mythology or a story that really resonates with us. Because from that, we can distill the different important themes and metaphors. So I know, for example, yours is Star Wars. That's your main myth, isn't it? So, and it's complete. It has everything there, like, you know, the Lord of the Rings or the Round Table. And choose your mythology and stick to that one. Not in a dogmatic way, but then you do not get lost in many stories. That's what I want to say.
Hello, Synchronauts, and welcome to another Elysian Roundtable with my dear friend and teacher, Mike Bais from Circle of Avalon. How are you, dear Mike? Welcome.
Very good again. Yes, and wonderful to do our, well, what is it, second episode of the Roundtable.
Yes,
and
we're going to
be... Hero's Journey.
Exactly. We're going to be finishing or continuing, we don't know, because we never know what's going to happen when we're recording this. But we're
That's the hero's quest.
Yeah, we're going to continue talking about the hero's journey, and just let you know that we're recording this on the 10th of April, and it's one day after Easter. So it's also very fitting what we're talking about with the celebrations that just took place in the past few days. And it's really interesting. I wanted to mention that this year, not both, it's actually three things that were happening at the same time, which are Ramadan, Passover, and Easter. So it's really interesting that the big three traditions are in sync this year, and this synchronicity takes place every 33 years. So I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really, really interesting, and hoping that everybody has had really happy holidays in the sense of this renewal, this renovation after going into the cave, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that because it has to do completely with the hero's journey, no? And so we haven't received any questions so far, but remember, guys, if you have any questions for Mike, you can leave them here in the comments, or you can contact him directly. And without further ado, let's continue with our very, very interesting analysis and, well, all of these interesting voyage or trip with the hero's journey, because some people might think, that that's just mythology, that's a thing of the books, or just like things that people imagine. But truth be said, we all go through this hero's journey some way or another in our lives. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. And it can be unconscious, and it can be very much conscious. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, that little picture before of the knight, maybe St. George or St. Michael on the horseback, who is fighting the dragon. It may be like a child's picture or something, but it is a possible inner reality on the path of the hero. You know, the dragon is that thing within us or around us that actually prevents us of going on the journey. So St. George is the archetype, the example, so to speak, of not killing the dragon, but keeping it in check so you can pass through. In that sense, the dragon is one of the main characters as a guardian on the threshold. So it has a function. It's not evil per se, but it tempts us to go in a different direction.
Okay, it kind of reminds me now, thinking about it, because I have a card here, one of the tarot cards of the Fool, and in some versions you can see like the little white dog that is just keeping from falling into wrong places. So sometimes I feel that the dragon, because it wants to protect us so much from getting hurt, sometimes it ends up doing exactly the opposite, no? Like it stops us from growing, and it stops us from going into adventure, and sometimes that can be, instead of good, it can bring us many problems, right?
Very right. There's a nice thing about the spear that's St. George is holding there. In one of the Grail stories, on the spear, it says, "Thou shalt not." So what it means is with the spear, which is the implement also of self-will, and which is actually like the middle column on the Tree of Life, you go against that which prevents you from becoming yourself. So that's why the dragon may symbolize the demands of society, or severe feeling of responsibility, why you always make yourself smaller instead of going out and find yourself. So that's a very important message there. Yeah.
And could we also, because we've already talked about the sword in the stone in other episodes.
Yes.
So it would be also kind of like the stone, no? Like the stone that's keeping your sovereignty, your sword fixed in one place, and you can.
You mean the dragon?
Yes, the dragon.
Yeah, very much. It's an interesting thing that what Joseph Campbell says about the dragon. He says the dragon in most, at least Western mythologies about the dragon, he says it's the animal part within us that is only occupied with guarding material things. So it guards gold and virgins, but it doesn't know what to do with either of them. So that also shows that the dragon is not very an intelligent beast. It's the basic animalistic, the lower chakra kind of energy that is just resting upon matter, keeping what you have, closing in, out of fear or anxiety about life. And your house, your little things, your money, that's the dragon there within us.
So it could be also like the reptilian part of the brain, no? That it's just its job is just to help you survive and continue being alive, and that also implies, as you say, no, guarding treasures. But sometimes we become so identified with what we have, or our objects, or our titles, or whatever, that we lose sight of who we really are, no?
That's spot on. That's exactly it. And it's good that you mentioned that as well, because again, the reptilian brain is of course a vital part of ourselves. We need it. That's why the dragon shouldn't be killed, but just kept in check. It has its function, and for our survival, as you said, and that's it. It shouldn't do more than that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's why sometimes in modern times you see that people, they have already arranged everything to live, and psychologically they're still surviving. So the dragon is like overpowering them, preventing them from doing anything meaningful or spiritual.
Exactly.
And that's a problem sometimes these days with the dragon archetype. Yeah.
Although it's very interesting what you're mentioning. I'm remembering talking about other movies and stories. I don't know if you've watched The Croods. It's like
I saw it. Yeah, very good.
Like that. It's like the father's like, we're not leaving the cave. Outside it's dangerous. You miss out. But just as the hero's journey, sometimes something will come and awaken your dragon or make you leave the cave because you have no other choice, no? And I think that's exactly
perfect.
what happens nowadays, that many of us were undergoing many, many big changes personally, but also collectively, that are forcing to us question, no? Are we doing things the correct way, or maybe this dragon is stopping us from growth, no, or from living, no?
Yeah, and it's a beautiful analogy. I didn't think about it, but the Croods, as one example, is a very good animation there, because it also shows us that it's a matter of how we, from generation to generation, pass on the perspective of this life and this earth. If we have been taught that everything is dangerous, or it's a fearful world, or don't show yourself too much, don't go your own way, stay within the tribe, then you get these kind of things. So it's yeah, definitely very good example. Yeah.
And I'm just remembering another one because, well, and it's really interesting. Now, sometimes when we're watching these movies or reading these books, whatever, we don't really sit down thinking, let's see what's going on in terms of the hero's journey. No, but I'm remembering, for
Yeah.
example, and this is one of my favorite Disney movies because I'm glad that with the times they have changed, because obviously moving, as you said, no, moving from the archetype of Cinderella or Snow White that needs to be rescued by a man and you have to be with the prince or else you're gonna be failing in life, no, and that's all your whole purpose. We're moving from
Exactly.
these archetypes of very what is the word, uh, subservient women who are just always dependent on the masculine, archetypes that
Yeah.
are more empowered, no, like I was remembering right now Moana.
Yeah.
Again, no, something happened to her father and he's like, don't go out into the sea, it's dangerous, but you have to also go and live your own thing and experience it yourself, because maybe they will tell you, oh, it's dangerous. Maybe something that
Yeah.
has been dangerous to somebody else in our lineage doesn't mean that it's going to
Yeah.
be bad, or that
And
we
it's
have to
always, yes, and it's always the individual who departs. It's never the group in totality. That's a reoccurring theme there, and we can still see it in daily life. So the hero's journey is most of the time for the individual. So it's not that the whole family goes on a hero's journey. It's always that one person, and the family is the representation of the established conditionings of life. And that's good. I mean, you return to that family, and there you can see again, ah, there's a part of my life which is continuous and is reliable. That's my home. I can return there. But the
yes,
hero's journey is for the individual. Yeah.
yeah, but it takes also the whole village, no, to make it possible. And what I've noticed also, and speaking with other people who are on a path of awakening or consciousness, it doesn't have to be,
Mm.
we want to label everything spiritually, but it's not necessarily that. Sometimes it's just an awakening in consciousness or psychologically, which also starts making a difference in our lives. And just seeing how many people are going through these changes, they're looking, and they're called the black sheep of the family, no? Because we're
Mm.
questioning, no? Why are we doing things this way? Why can't we go
Yeah.
and do this way, no? And what I've
Yeah.
discovered is that it's amazing how much the system around you will do to stop
Mm.
everything from changing, even though there is abuse in the system, which could be
Yeah.
physical, verbal, psychological, even
Mm.
sexual
Yeah.
abuse. But the
Yeah.
system trying to preserve itself, and that would be a kind of like thinking about the dragon. It's trying
That
to
is the
preserve
dragon.
itself so much that it will do everything to stop that, even though that means you're going to sacrifice people in the own group or the tribe.
Oh
So
yeah, exactly.
breaking free from that, it takes the black sheep,
Mm.
no, of the family.
Yeah. And that's the stage of being and consciousness that the black sheep has to go through. You see, it's not your fate to become a black sheep and stay there. It tells you something. It's a moment of initiation, uh, and then you have to get out, or it will mean your destruction sometimes in a certain sense. I mean, it's just psychological destruction of not living your life, not unfolding who you are. So
Mhm.
that's definitely so. And
Yeah.
that's the known world in the upper part of this drawing here.
Mhm.
That can be a perfect, convenient, and pleasurable world. Don't get me wrong. But in the negative sense, it can be something like you just described, very unhealthy environment,
Yeah.
or slavish environment in a family or in a group. Um, and then we are most of the time pushed on the hero's journey. Sooner or later, it can be a bad marriage as well, you know, And initiation comes through crisis.
Yes.
Or it comes because we are called from within. The spirit calls us and we start moving. And like we said the other time, it can also be a combination of those two.
Yes, which I think for most people, that's what it is, because what happens, and coming back to Star Wars again, talking about Luke had felt the call, but it was until the crisis came that he had no choice and to go and answer the call. So it's really interesting that sometimes, because we already talked a little bit about the refusal of the call, no, we can say like, no, I don't want to go, because as you said, no, here is known, I am cozy, or this is known. I prefer the known, the evil known, that the unknown. And we have that saying here in Mexico. It's better to know, it's better to deal with a devil you already know than to deal with a devil that you don't know. So it's very easy to remain here instead of coming down here. But sometimes life gives you no choice but move over here, no?
Well, you know, that's funny that you say it, because in where I come from, also the mystical side of Christianity, so to speak, they say that the greatest trick of the devil is exactly what you just said. It is pretending that you know him. But the greatest weapon of the devil is that you do not know him, because then, you know, through unconscious processes, you are, as it were, the toy of the temptations coming from the deep unconscious. So it's a I would say you fell for the trick if you answer to that idea. You know, don't trust in that reliability of daily life and the known world all the time, because that's not all there is. The deeper intelligence is in the archetypal domain, which is in the unknown world.
Exactly. This is where the jewels are. This is where you can find the treasure.
Yeah, and of course it's scary. Everything that we don't know, or, you know, in general, is scary. But like you said, there's a lot of treasure. There is resistance as well. There is, you know, stuff you didn't want to know about any longer, or you never knew. But at least it's true what you find there. It's a part of you, and that's for the hero's journey vital. It's most important. You know, it's to become whole. That's, of course, the symbol of the circle.
Yeah. And it's interesting because just like the saying goes, no, you have to go full circle. Like you always come back to the beginning, and then, as we were saying also last time, no, it's like you're there. It's like unlocking levels on on one of those video games, you know. You start unlocking levels, but it continues. It goes on like the Russian dolls, no? It goes on and on and on, and you're like, when is this going to end? It never ends.
Yeah.
It's going and going and going. But it all comes back to the same. Obviously, you're gonna find yourself change through each cycle that you go through.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so the threshold, that line, that horizontal line, the beginning of transformation, is what we mentioned the other time, is going into the dark forest. And yeah, so that's another symbol there for the unknown. So for all our listeners here, it could mean maybe you have thought about changing your job or study or whatever it is, and you just don't know what you're into. This is the moment to say, I'm going to do the things that I love, not what I should do. That's the dragon, not the things that keep me because it's my duty, or, you know, this is what I've been taught. No, I'm going to do it because I love it, because it's a part of me and I need to unfold it. Like Campbell would say, I follow my bliss.
Yeah.
And nothing else. Because when I follow my bliss, then my life will unfold in the way that it should.
Exactly.
And that's the initiation part. That's where we are in front of a dark forest, and then we decide to enter it. And the refusal of the call is to go back to the known world. And this is to make the step forward. Yeah. And yeah, in the dark forest, that's actually daily life. But you know, in the different decisions that we make, we encounter different situations, different people. We encounter through them different areas of ourselves, of the psyche, and that's the totality of the dark forest. And in the round table mythology, they call that the forest of low grass, also called the enchanted forest. So yeah, exactly. Which is, on the one hand, again, it's the inner world of the psyche, and it's also the outside world. And the forest of enchantment presents to us, like in a dream or a fantasy, the things, how we have learned to look at the world, not always as it is. So we are under a kind of a spell in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the hero's quest is all about, you know, shattering gradually those enchantments, breaking the spell, and seeing the world for what it truly is. Or in other terms, to become real.
Well, something that I wanted to add, because we talk about the dream spell in the Galactic Mayan synchronometer, or like the count that I work with. And what Jose Arguelles says about the dream spell is when 2 or 3 individuals come together and they agree on a reality, no? So that's why it's called a dream spell, because it's like we're dreaming together, and it's a spell because at any time we can decide that it's different. So it's really interesting to know that I think in order for this spell or this enchantment of reality quote unquote, to be there, we need the people to agree on that. And it reminds me also of the story of, I don't know if you remember this it's a very famous children's tale. What's the name in there was this emperor who wanted a new suit, no, the emperor's new suit, actually. I think that's the name in
Yeah,
English.
I know that one. Yeah.
And the dream spell or the enchantment was that everybody would agree that the king was having this amazing suit being made, and there was nothing really there, no?
Yeah.
Which is like really funny because, and who is the one who called out the truth? No, it's a child who says, what are you talking about? The king is naked, no, he's not wearing anything. And I think maybe 99.99% of what we perceive as real or true, it's kind of like that story. We live under so many arbitrary agreements, and we don't question them, and we go living our lives according to those. And that's what creates such a big chaos, because we're all living under false pretenses. And I think that's why we're denying our identity, we're denying our divinity and who we are, and chaos ensues.
Yeah, certainly. And for example, within the Kabbalah, we are only taught in daily life, most of us at least, about physical reality and part of the psyche. So we become acquainted with the physical body and with the ego. And it's not much more to it, really, than that. So the spell of that reality also prevents us, in a sense, of looking further or seeing the spiritual realm or even the divine realm behind it, which is inherent within the dream. So waking up, you know, from this reality, which is also a very Buddhistic idea, is waking up to the spiritual dimension. And that happens all the time, also in mythology. You know, like, for example, the story of Percival, who has to undo himself, talking about clothes, undoing himself of old shabby clothes that he got from his mother before putting his armor on. But he keeps these, you know, old shabby clothes, he keeps them on all the time. And that's a symbol of saying, no, I have to undo myself of an old self, an old identity, when I'm going to adopt a new one. And it's packed in those kind of stories. Yeah, you cannot transform and remain the same in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely need to let go of everything you thought you were, or you could, that you can become who you really are. No? And yes, those processes are very scary.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the ego has its function, and it's in a way a generator of dreams, also in daily life, not just only in the night times. And it doesn't have to go away, but our spiritual task is that we start seeing that for what it is. And then the ego can just do whatever it does all the time.
Yeah.
But now something else, another consciousness is in charge. That would be the self.
Yeah.
Now the self is not in the known world most of the time. It is within the unconscious realm. So if there's no hero's journey, you will not find the self or the heart chakra, Tiferet, and you will not have that experience that you know that you're dreaming. You know that you're only experiencing a limited part of the totality of reality. So I hope that's clear for all the listeners, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned to me once, and I don't know if it was during one of our recordings, but like, the ego is like the cook, no? We're talking about in the castle. When the cook wants to take over, no? Or the guard wants to take over the castle. No, you have the king. The king has to be in charge, but sometimes we allow our ego, it has a function to help us survive, yes. But if you let the ego run the show, then you're in trouble because he's not the king. The king comes, it's a different kind of energy, and most people, we are in everything that we do, we are moving in the world through our egos, and it's, as you say, sometimes it's like it's so much in control that we don't realize. I was telling you before we were recording something that happened to me, a reaction that I did, and that was surely was my ego trying to protect me. No, it was something very silly. It was like, what? Am I not
It's
supposed
normal.
to be understanding more about life? And no, still, as long as we're incarnate, our egos will keep up, jumping up and trying to, no, and then we have to rectify that. I think become aware when this is happening and say, no, wait, okay, I am more than what just transpired right now, and I have to rectify. But in order to do that, you have to do this connection with the unconscious, as you were saying, right?
Exactly. And and again, in the Grail stories, all the knights and all the ladies are tested on their weaknesses. And they all have a different profile, all these archetypes. So the one is tested on, lust, or on justice, or on perseverance, for example. And that's of course in comparison, in analogy to our lives. So if we are very watchful, we can also find fitting to our personality what the challenges and the teaching is on the journey. And then, for example, certain people in our family or in our job, they can become the so-called adversaries or testers on the way. And we can recognize them in certain mythologies, but they have a job, not just somebody in the way. They come to teach us something. But it can only happen when we start to look differently at the situations and the people around us. Yeah.
And sometimes it's our turn to be their testers as well.
Oh, yeah, no, we have the same function, exactly. But it's good that we know that too. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Definitely.
Yeah. Because that's also in spirituality in general, that's also the role of the teacher is sometimes to throw something in front of the feet of the student, to say, well, chew on this, or just to create a challenge there,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So that you're completely right about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the diagram, in that part where we enter the dark forest, where there are challenges and pitfalls and also treasures to be found, on that stage of the hero's journey, it's quite important that as a traveler, as a seeker, we find a mythology or a story that really resonates with us. Because from that, we can distill the different important themes and metaphors. So I know, for example, yours is Star Wars. That's your main myth, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
and it's complete. It has everything there, like, the Lord of the Rings or the Round Table. And choose your mythology and stick to that one, not in a dogmatic way, but then you do not get lost in many stories. That's what I want to say.
Just that kind of like a guideline, no?
Sorry, excuse me.
It's kind of like a guideline. Your mythology will be your guideline.
That's it. Yeah. It's not my idea only. This is by Joseph Campbell as well.
Yeah.
That's the problem sometimes in the modern times is people do not have a mythology to live by.
That's right.
They try to go through life on an intellectual way, or let society guide. And there's nothing there of any spiritual kind, or there's no hero's quest.
Exactly. And
The
this is
intellect cannot lead us on.
This is something that we've mentioned before in other programs, that because we have no mythological archetypes to guide us right now, those places are being taken by influencers or pop artists or these people.
Yes.
Who they are very lost as well. They have no idea, and they keep on promoting the dream spell, no, or the enchantment, of how things should be. And it's really interesting because now more than ever with social media, and we have to be very careful with that. It's like the hall of mirrors. We don't really like it. Might be perfect in the picture, but you just move 1 inch into reality, and it's complete chaos. Or people are portraying like, this is my life, and it's not really like that. And the worst part is that most people have no reference, as you say, they have no mythology, or they have no guidelines to distinguish fantasy from truth, and say, okay, not because they are doing this like this, that means that I have to do it. And if I'm not doing that, then I am a loser. And then a lot of people are falling into depression, especially now after everything that's been transpiring worldwide in the past 3 years. People are very lost because we were confined, and there was no guideline, no, how do we live this, how do we experience this? And we go online and we keep these fantasies up, and it's just like madness, no? Like
It
the
is.
house is fire and nobody's doing anything about it, no?
No, that's it. And especially like you said, the guidelines into the unconscious. I mean, there's guidance in everyday life, where to go through and go to school and whatever it is, just your duties. But to go into the unconscious, there's not much guideline there. So going into the unconscious and meeting the archetypes is really an adventure. At the same time, you may get lost in the archetype. That's another challenge there. I've seen that happening with people who become obsessed with the archetype, and they think that they are Merlin, for example, or they think that they are a Jedi. And that's another enchantment possibility there.
An
So we have to see.
over-identification.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so that's another important teaching there, so that we see that the archetypes are all little pieces of the totality within us. We shouldn't only become obsessed by, for example, the hero, but also by the villain, or the wise old man or woman, etc., etc., and try to live through all these archetypes, because you have them within you. I mean, you, everyone. And then you get like you said, full circle, because the round table is, made up of 12 places, and they represent the 12 archetypes, like the 12 signs of the zodiac, etc. So important that you explore your mythology from A to Z, from beginning to end.
Yeah, and also
Only
something
then.
important. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead. No, I just wanted to say, slowly moving on, that out of the living through the archetypes in your mythology, only then can you come actually to the nadir, or the lowest point of the circle, where you can find true transformation. That's what I wanted to say.
And I
Yeah,
think
there
it's
you have it.
to mention that because sometimes, especially when you have been like, I don't know if I should use this word, but I'm gonna use it anyways. You've been indoctrinated to no, you have, for example, in my case, no, you have to be a good girl and you have to do this and you have to like. We have these ideas that, and you should never
Yeah,
explore certain archetypes, no, because no, you cannot do that. You cannot be evil, or you cannot be the sexy temptress, no. You're gonna go to hell if you do
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
then you miss out on exploring those archetypes within you, and sometimes life will present you with situations where you need to bring out those aspects that might seem negative, but at the same time you
yeah,
also need that energy to, for example, put boundaries, protect yourself. I don't know. So it's important what you just said. I think it's
yeah,
very, very important. We have to explore all of it. It's not, we're not going to be the
yeah.
hero all the time. That's not how it works. We have to
No,
go through all of the
no,
archetypes, both feminine and masculine.
yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're born a man or a woman, but explore those energies, because we are the embodiment of all of those things, but we're not aware of it. And
Yes.
taking this like this storyline, the storyline of the hero's journey, can help
Yeah.
you navigate these moments, and then you can know,
That's
okay,
it.
when is the time, what is happening, and which
Yeah,
archetype do I need to bring out, no, kind of have like an
yeah.
archetype toolbox, no. I'm gonna open it, and today I need the magician, no, or today I need the beggar, or I need the king, or I need the
Yeah,
evil twin. I don't know, no. So it's
yeah.
important to know these
That's it.
archetypes, when to use them,
Yeah.
no.
Well, and that's exactly what, referring to the course I'm going to give in the UK in coming May. That's exactly the practical side of the course, is to explore those archetypes so that people directly become aware of all of these different possible identifications within ourselves, without getting lost in them, of course. Yeah. But it's all about self-knowledge here, like you said. So yeah. And only
Exactly.
then can you come to a kind of synthesis of yourself, which may lead to, well, like I said, to a death of an old self and the rebirth of a new awakening. So a new idea about yourself. So it looks very dramatic. And like you said, this is also was Easter time. So it doesn't mean physical death and rebirth, but it means sometimes a psychological death um, on your level of your journey.
Yes.
It may be small, it may be big, but something had to go. And now you find yourself in a new part of living. And
Exactly.
that's can only happen, that revelation, as it says, um, if you really persist on the quest. Yeah. But
Yes.
it always will happen sooner or later, and it may, like you said, it may repeat itself. You have many revelations throughout life, um, and that's going through an abyss, something you do not have any control about. So the ego doesn't like it, but most of the time we are well on our way. That yeah, exactly, the ego. We are well on our way, that the ego doesn't need to be the master of the house. So it has already gotten the role of the butler, so to speak. It's a good servant now.
Okay.
You see, and that gives you the opportunity to surrender unto that moment of transformation. Because the ego is opposite, is an antagonist of transformation. The ego wants to keep everything as it is, wants continuity of being itself, which is logical, and wants to maintain everything as it is. So the ego has to give up, and in order to transformation to happen. Yeah, and that's exactly what you show. This is the dragon on its back surrendering, and we can go into the abyss.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to continue. We definitely will need another session to finish talking about.
I thought so.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was suspecting that, but well, I just want to leave us with this image, so that in our next session we can continue talking about this abyss, and what is happening here, because, like, why is that guy floating and the other ones are falling down? What's going on there, and how can we learn to float or fly when our time comes, go into the abyss? So I'm sure that you will be talking to us about all of those things in our next session. So
I would love to.
How would you like to close this particular program today, Mike? What would you like to tell everybody who's watching as a closing?
I would say, also from a practical point of view, because otherwise this is just theory. If any of the listeners are saying, well, this is very interesting, then, like we just said almost at the end, is just wonder and just ask yourself, what would be my story? And if you look back in your life, you may have clues or hints to what is the mythology that resonates most with me. And see if you can read about it. See if you can find similarities and parallels there.
Okay, that's very good
and
advice.
That would be that. Yeah, I think so. It's not easy, maybe. Maybe people think, where should I start? But always start where you're now, and then look back and see, where's my life until this day? Where do I want to go? And if you want to go into the unknown, you need a mythology. What is your story? What has your story been about? And what kind of adventure would you like to traverse?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes sense. Like, before, it would be the ideal thing that before going to the adventure, you already have the mythology. But many of us were discovering all of these as we're going through the crisis. So it doesn't matter when it comes. The important thing is that it comes. And for those who want to join you in the UK, can you give us a bit more information about it, please?
Yeah, sure, of course. So that's going to be a 2-day course in Hawkwood College. That's in the beautiful Cotswold area. It's an old Steiner anthroposophical center, beautifully situated. And there we do a 2-day course on the hero's journey, what we're all talking about here, the 22nd, 23rd of May. If you want to know more about it, you can or look on my website, which is circleofavalon.nl, or look on my Facebook page. You see a lot of little ads about it, or look on the website of Hawkwood College, hawkwoodcollege.co.uk, or send me an email, and you can find my email address everywhere. So, and then if you have questions, then let me know about it. Yeah.
I think that if you guys can go, because it's not the same doing this work on your own than having an instructor like Mike, but also other people who will also be there with you as you discover these amazing tools from the hero's journey, so that you can use them in whatever moment you need in your life, whatever you're navigating. And it's really, really useful, definitely, to not only know the theory, but also know,
Yeah.
okay, how do I apply this to my actual human life, which might seem, oh, but I'm not Frodo, no, trying to bring back the ring to the
Yeah.
fires of Mordor. I'm not Luke Skywalker trying to destroy the Death Star, or I'm not Harry Potter trying to bring peace and get rid of Voldemort. No, but you don't know, like you don't know what life might bring to you, and how you might need also to bring all of these tools into your life, and how they can make a big difference in how you're experiencing whatever you're going through. So
Yeah.
it's very nice.
And the course will also be full of exercises, meditations, and plenty of room to ask questions. So you will really go home. I can, almost assure you, you go back with experience and with new knowledge about it. So it's not
Very
just a theoretical. Very practical.
Yeah, and that's something that I really love. Also, if you haven't bought any of Mike's books, they're very practical as well. He's not talking only
Mm,
about Kabbalah and Science, but also he has these exercises and meditations which are very, very useful as well. So that's
mm,
something I really appreciate from your teachings, like that. It's very, very practical, down to earth, and easy to understand.
mm.
So
Yeah.
if you guys are in Europe or in the UK, you should really, really take the time to go and experience this amazing adventure with Mike down at the Hawkwood College. All right. Well, we'll be back. We don't know when, but very soon to conclude,
Yes.
to finish this little voyage around the hero's journey. And I want to thank
Yes.
you, dear Mike.
Exactly.
Anything else you would like to add?
No, not really. I want to thank you for your great hosting and for your enthusiasm and your trust in me. So thank you for that. That's what I want to add.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much, dear Michael. I'm very happy to be providing these spaces so
Mm,
that we really need to create this village, no? As I was saying before, no, it takes a village also
mm,
to go to this. We're not alone, and if in any way we can give information and I can provide a space, I'm really happy. And I'm really happy that you're also sharing with us your knowledge. It's very
mm.
much needed now, and let's hope that it will be helping many generations to come. Hopefully, the internet will not disappear, and this will still be online so that other people
Yes,
can benefit
exactly.
from our conversation. So, thank you as well. Thank you, dear Synchronauts. So, we'll be back soon. I don't know when, but very soon we will finish this conversation. In the meantime, take care, and we'll see each other very soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.